Welcome, everyone, and happy Thursday. It is noon Eastern time here on the East Coast, obviously, and that means it is time for your favorite show in human resources. It's time for Talent Experience Live, the show that covers everything that you need to know in talent acquisition, recruiting, talent management, human resources, and everything in between. I am your host, Devin Foster, and this program is proudly brought to you by the good folks here at Phenom, whose purpose is to help 1 billion people find the right work. That is why we put on this weekly program. It's why we have fantastic webinars, why we have fantastic reports that come out. Hint, hint, that's what we're talking about today. And why we have a great blog, a great conference, everything in between. But we can't achieve our purpose by simply doing fantastic blogs, by simply hosting great live stream. The way that we do it is through our Intelligent Talent Experience platform, which helps candidates find the right fit faster, employees evolve in their current roles and beyond, recruiters achieve next level productivity and efficiency, and managers get better data and insight through analytics and automation. So if any of this interests you at all, don't walk to phenom.com right now, where you will without a doubt see a promotion for our upcoming HR Innovations event on June the 6th. That's next Thursday. So unfortunately, there won't be a Talent Experience Live next Thursday because we are busy talking about generative AI and everything in between. So you will not want to miss that. Once again, you can find it at phenom.com. Just click and register. We're not talking about that today. Unfortunately, I would love to talk about everything that's happening as far as HR tech and innovations and all of the exciting stuff that we're going to be sharing next week. Instead, we are talking about something else that we'll be sharing next week. We are talking about our annual 2024 Candidate Experience Report, State of Candidate Experience Report, And today, we're giving you a first look. We've done this for a number of years now, and it takes a peek at some of the giant organizations that we all look up to and compares and contrasts them on a number of levels to see where they rank when it comes to candidate experience. It was only a few short years ago that it truly became, I think, a pinnacle of recruiting and human resources at all to start talking about how individuals apply for jobs, right? Gone are the days where people look up the wanted ads in the newspaper or fill out paper resumes, or even fill out online job boards and things like that. People want that best in class candidate experience wherever they go. And that's what this report looks at. And today I am joined by a very special recurring guest now, which is fun to say, Joanna Keel, who is a product marketing manager here. She has been heads down in this report for months on end. So without any further hesitation, let's bring Joanna onto the program. Hey, how are you?
Hi, I'm well. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. I am excited about this report. I know that, it has been something that even while I left the organization, something that Phenom still did. So I want to ask you, since you are the expert, I am simply just a man with a microphone. What exactly is the State of Candidate Experience Report for those who may not have heard of it?
Yes, love to answer that. I've been heads down in this report since September of last year, believe it or not. And I love geeking out on data. So stop me if I get a little dorky. The State of Candidate Experience Report is one of Phenom's most highly anticipated reports. That's why we've done it now, if you're counting, 8 years have we had this report. What it does is it looks at the Fortune 500, those companies that made the list, and it looks at the top European companies. And what we do is we check out their ability to attract, engage, and convert candidates across the entire candidate experience. So it's a great snapshot in time to say, like, what is it like in 2024? Let's take a look and dive in.
That's awesome. I want to ask you specifically, you mentioned the 3 buckets there.
Yeah.
What goes into that deciding factor? There's obviously a lot that goes into candidate experience, some of which can't be found on a typical career site, right? I'm talking about recruiter interactions and things like that. I had a conversation with Surveil last week that chats about that. I imagine that we're not going that deep into the candidate experience, but nonetheless, the attraction, engagement, and conversion is what every organization kind of benchmarks themselves
Yeah.
on right now. So, how did Phenom come across those three buckets, and how do you decipher the three?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a really good question because in the report does a very good job at breaking down the three, right? And even opportunities for improvement if you did well in one, but not so much in the other. But attraction is all about driving traffic to your page. How do you drive traffic to your page? Well, you're going to need to have some good SEO, right? Because if you're not discoverable in search engines, forget about it. No one's coming to your page, or if they are, the traffic is just going to be eh. So imagine if you have a low traffic number, I sure as heck hope you have a very good engagement because you're now going to need to engage those candidates. So this is all about you've attracted them, you've drove the traffic through SEO, through landing pages, through social media, but now they're on your page. Can't stop there, right? You need to keep them on there and keep them engaged. So things that you look at is about time on page. Are they just coming to your page and leaving right away? If so, you might not have the right content that that job seeker or candidate was looking for. So we're checking out things like job descriptions, blogs, videos, your employee value proposition. All those things are really going into, getting them further and further down the funnel, right? And getting closer to that apply button. Conversion just looks at that, driving applications. Okay, so you got the traffic to your page, you've engaged them with some awesome content. How do you get them to apply, right? And now, as consumers, we expect that to be easy. If it's not, forget about it. We're out of there.
Mhm.
So if you had a conversion problem, your application process is probably pretty complex, and that some simple fixes there could make that a lot better.
Yeah, no, I love it, and I love kind of the way that you describe attraction, engagement, and conversion. I think of it in my I crazy mind as I'm a bit of a Swiftie, Joanna, but it's Taylor Swift's concerts, right? That is the pinnacle of attracting people to your building. What do you want to happen? You want them to engage while they're there. You want them to sing along to the songs, to have a good time, to record, right? And then you want to convert, like Taylor Swift wants to sell merch while she's there. That's the pinnacle of an event. And when we liken that to a career site, you really want to do all three of those things, because if you don't, it's going to be a failure, right? If Taylor Swift doesn't attract people to her concert, nobody's going to sing along to the songs, right? Then nobody's going to buy merch because nobody's going to have a good time. It all starts from this funnel approach, which I think is super important. Now, you mentioned that the report's been going on for 8 years. That's a long time, almost as long as the Eras Tour, I feel, has been going on. But I want to ask you, since we've done it for so long, why is it so important? Why do we view this as, I think you mentioned, our most anticipated report on an annual basis? Why do we hold so much onus to the State of Candidate Experience report?
Yeah, absolutely. One, demand. People look forward to this report. Like I said, I've been working on it since September, and I'm not just saying that, I have been. It takes that long to look at lists of this size and of this nature. And we have such a great methodology for our report and our audit and our process, that it really makes it a useful tool for companies of all sizes. So whether or not you're a Fortune 500 company or even a small organization, this is something you can benefit from. But it's important because it looks at the industry, at these industry giants, right? They certainly got the gaining revenue part right. They can check that box. So how are they performing in everything else? It's a great benchmarking to know, wow, okay, as a whole, you could make some general statements. The industry is improving here, or we're not here. It's just a really great tool for you to improve your candidate experience and win that talent battle.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that they have the revenue box checked, right? They are the most successful organizations, whether it be domestically here in the US or in Europe. I think of it as, how do you stay at the top, right? How do sports teams continue to win championship after championship? LeBron James is getting old, right? The Lakers have to find someone new to fill in those shoes. Maybe it's his son, but neither here nor there. Organizations are the same way. They are at the top. They are the best of the best. In order to stay there, you have to backfill that talent, because
That's right.
folks are going to switch jobs. Folks are going to retire. Folks are going to move up in their roles. I want to ask you, we talked about the 3 buckets, right, of attraction, engagement, and conversion. How can organizations use these to their advantage? Can they pinpoint specific areas that they may be lacking from this? Does the report show it from that perspective?
Yes. And like I said, I really want to call out the fact of, if you're not Fortune 500, this report is still for you. Small, medium, large, it doesn't matter. It's just a great benchmarking tool. So across the 3 buckets, one of the things that this report does really, really nicely is at the end, it kind of summarizes and gives some takeaways to be like, hey, what could you implement tomorrow within your organization that can help you improve? And so there's going to be 2 to 3 tips across each of those areas that you could quickly flip the switch and turn on, which means then your organization is now performing at a level better than where you were yesterday. And that's what it's all about, right? It's all about improving that candidate experience, finding those gaps within your own organization, using this as a tool with to really outline and map your process to be like, what can we do today that would have a big impact, or what could be done down the road? This is an excellent tool to really look across those 3 buckets and to just make some changes.
Yeah. No, I think that's super. The tips are great, right? And I know that you've done a ton of content with some of our customers, right? Like Lumen, you did a webinar a couple weeks ago. Joanna, I didn't prepare you for this, but this is a sneak peek, right? So I want to ask you, maybe it's from the webinar with Lumen, maybe it's from the report itself, which comes out next week. But you mentioned some of those tips. Is there one that we can reward, excuse me, our audience with, is something that they could look at before the report is out and say, hey, that is an area of improvement. We can get started on it right now. One tip that you'd like to give away free of charge to encourage some of these downloads next week.
Sure. Yeah, one of the ones that we see, so we saw a lot of trends of companies improve. One of which was their use of mobile, right? Which makes sense, right? The technology is there. There's just no reason these days that like a site doesn't work on your mobile phone. Like the technology is just so advanced. If that's where you're at today, you really need to look at your process, which I highly doubt you are. But one of the biggest tips I would say is social apply, actually. It's a very easy feature to turn on that social apply, because you never know where candidates are coming from these days. And you want to be prepared. You need to be open for all these channels so that you can attract the best traffic. Even if it's not, Devin, I am not a social media guru like you. You are amazing, but I am not you. But guess what? I know how to use technology, and I could go and turn a button on. And then guess what? I get talent like you to come in, because if that's where you're spending a lot of your time, I'm now able to attract this talent pool that maybe I didn't reach before.
First of all, thank you for the kind words. Your check is in the mail. I promise you'll get it soon. But we oftentimes, for years, almost to the point where it's annoying now at this point, have we compared applying to jobs to e-commerce, right? And you mentioned the social apply aspect, and I look, being in the social media world that I am, the TikTok shop, right? And Instagram having availability to put the link tree and get somebody to buy something immediately. It's apples to apples. It's synonymous at this point, where why wouldn't you have that opportunity? If you're promoting a job on social media, allow someone to immediately get to that job posting and apply from there, because there's less conversion. We want to get from point A to point B as fast as we can, and one click typically does that. You mentioned trends there a little bit, specifically around the mobile. Having so many years of data now that we've done this report, 8 years, are there organizations beginning to trend in the right direction overall. I imagine when we first did it, I kind of remember from years back, there were things like organizations didn't have chatbots, they didn't have X, Y, and Z on their career sites. Are we beginning to see companies and organizations keep up with the Joneses, if you will, start to get to a modern approach to talent acquisition?
Yeah, absolutely. So the report does a very good job at outlining just some trends in general we're seeing. So, like, if nothing else, read that portion.
Okay.
But yes, so to answer your question, we are seeing trends of improvement, especially sort of on chatbots, for example. So at a time, it was like no one had them, right? Or like 1%. We're seeing that increase. We're seeing chatbots show up on career sites. But now that's not enough, right? You can't just have a dummy chatbot on your site that's just like, hello,
Mm-hmm.
and doesn't greet you. It's not conversational. So now we're asking questions like, can you apply from your chatbot? Can you ask it for job openings, or can you submit your resume and they can find one for you? So it's more sophisticated actions is now what we're having to judge the market on, because just asking the simple chatbot question isn't enough these days.
I think that's wonderful, because you mentioned the industry breakdown immediately, and I'm not saying that organizations should do this, but they will. They will look at how their competitors ranked, where
Yeah.
they are lacking in areas, and say, "Hey, we can do this," and immediately beat their cousin down the block or whoever it may be for that talent that's around here. So super exciting there. Unfortunately, Joanna, not everyone in the world is as positive as we are, right? There are going to be naysayers in the world, and I'm sure there are people who are going to say, state of candidate experience report. I already have all of my data and analytics that I need. I have apply clicks, I have apply completes. How does this information differ from those traditional TA metrics? And how is it vitally important for organizations to have that? How do we let a naysayer know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, apply clicks are important. I know you're putting those on your reports, but this
Mhm.
is holistic, right? This is not apply clicks. This is the entire journey. So, and really what it helps is, like I said, to map out, do you have a traffic problem? Are you getting enough traffic to your page? Do you know that you need 1,000 visitors in order to convert 10? So if you got 200 open roles, you need that many visitors, 20,000 or
Mhm.
something like that, right?
Yeah.
So, if you don't hit that traffic number, you're never going to fill your open roles. So, this report really helps connect the dots, where Apply Clicks just tells you just that. This is telling you, do you have a traffic problem? Do you have an engagement problem? Are you getting this a huge amount of traffic to your page, but they're all bouncing? If you are, that means they're just not searching. Maybe they can join a wait list for an open job once it opens. So then you're building a talent pool behind the scenes, right? Or your chatbot could engage them and ask them questions. So they feel like they had a connection digitally, right? So in the conversion, are people starting the applications but not finishing? Or are they not getting there even at all? That's something you definitely want to look at, because the technology is there. There's just no excuses anymore of why an apply button isn't everywhere on a website. It's
Yeah.
there. So, this is a very holistic look at the entire candidate journey. So you can really have a good view of what the experience is.
It's important. You can't pinpoint, to one specific area. You have to look at the entire three buckets, as you mentioned, and look at the holistic experience. Because if you have an issue where you need, 1,000 applicants to fill 10 positions or whatever it may be, it's going to make everybody's life harder. Which kind of segues me to my next question. I feel like no matter where you are in the world, you are contractually obligated to mention AI at some point. It's just the world we live in. Does the report dive specifically into AI? I know we've kind of navigated with it different ways over the past few years. How are we beginning to track that, and how can organizations see how their industry peers and industry competitors are leveraging it in the same way?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do track it. So there's a fourth category of artificial intelligence. And what that really looked at is how well are you using artificial intelligence throughout those three buckets of attraction, engagement, and conversion. So, and what we're seeing actually as a trend is it's improving. But spoiler alert, only 11% of companies are doing it well. So, and what's shocking about that is that these are industry leaders. Some of them sell these products, right, that are on the list. So what that tells you is that there's a slow to adopt, or maybe slow to implement, kind of mentality going on out
Yeah.
there. So just by doing some of the features that AI can help you with of saving time, and efficiency and productivity, all those improvements, that could be a huge win for your organization, especially if you're small. You could act like an industry giant, even though you're 1,200 employees or
Yeah.
whatever it might be.
11% is concerning. I think if you were, to be anywhere else besides like a doctor's office, you would be like, I have an 11% chance of making it to this meeting on time. You're not making it on time, right?
Yeah.
That is not good. You want that number to jump up. It sounds like an area of concern across all industries. If you mentioned that there's
Yeah.
only 11% there, any other kind of areas of concerns, just high level that you saw as you dove through this report all the way back from September?
Yeah. So, if I had to call another one out, one that was very interesting is that, one thing we looked at in conversion is, did you send a survey after, or a follow up after the application? And no one did. 0% did. So, and why does that matter? Let's think about that. If no one's doing it, does it really matter? And think about it though, if you're a candidate, put your candidate hat on. If you apply somewhere, don't you want to hear back that it actually made it through space and time or wherever? Um, so that right there is, really just helps support that candidate experience, that best in class. You want your brand to be top of mind all the time, be shiny and attractive, and you want all the best talent to flock to you. Well, how will they flock to you if you're not giving them a best experience back?
Yeah, it's that old adage of, if a tree falls in the woods, and no one's there, does it make a sound? It does to the animals,
Yeah.
Joanna. The animals, they're not, candidates are not animals. I promise not to. That's not the analogy I was going for here. But if no one's doing it, it's a clear cut way that you can be ahead of the game, right? You can immediately take a step forward and provide a better candidate experience, and maybe have somebody willing to refer another individual to a job or come back and apply the second time around because they felt good about what happened. Um, the other question that I have for you, Joanna, is obviously we spend a lot of this conversation talking about the Fortune 500, right?
Yep.
We have friends across the pond and all throughout Europe. Um, you mentioned that we have a European report. What does that look at? Because obviously they don't have a Fortune 500 list.
Yes.
How do we go about deciphering what companies to audit there?
Yeah, so the methodology is truly comparable to the Fortune 500. Basically, you look at the top revenue, companies in the European market, and you scoop those up. You scoop the 100, right? The report methodology checked at the same boxes as it does for Fortune 500. So it is just looking at the European.
That's fair. Are there vast differences between the two from a metrics perspective? Just curious, or are these large organizations mostly operating the same way?
They are larger organizations in the Euro 100, just because it is 100. We don't break it down by industry.
That's fair.
But that's not to say that's not necessarily a negative thing, right? If we did just broke it down by industry, there would just be a few to compare you against.
Mhm.
So in this case, it's almost easier to compare to the full 100 list.
Yeah.
And then that way you can say, hey, here's the top companies in this area. How do I stack up against their overall score, their attraction, engagement, and conversion type scores?
Okay.
So, and what's interesting about the report there is, although the methodology is the same, right?
Mhm.
These companies are operating on a global scale, just like the Fortune 500 companies
Yep.
are. They're massive beasts. They still have high employee counts, just like, Fortune 500. But you can see some of the trends that are coming out of that European market, with labor shortages and, some of the hardships and challenges that are coming out of there. The report hints at that. with slightly lower attraction scores in general, with slightly lower engagement scores, things like that. So it supports what's actually going on as far as the data goes of the challenges of that market.
That's awesome. Not awesome. The slightly lower scores are not awesome for those organizations, but it's awesome to pick out those trends. And obviously, we're having this conversation very high level. We are stirring up some buzz for the report that comes out next week. I want to ask you, before we sign off, before we get ready to head into the weekend, any final thoughts? Any last things that you'd like to share about the State of Candidate Experience Report for our audience?
Yeah, what I really want you to know, what I want you to take away is read the report. I think you'll find it very interesting. And especially, like I said, those takeaways at the end, those are free tips that you could do in your company today that would actually help you outperform your competitors. If you're a competitive spirited person, you can actually look up your competitor and be like, hey, I did better than you. Or, and that's always fun banter back and forth.
Yeah.
But really take a look at those free giveaways. If you're inclined, you're like, oh man, my company's not a Fortune 500, but I would really love to see how I fared across these 3 buckets. You can get in touch with us. We actually do custom audits as well. So that way you can actually sit down and see how your organization looks up against the Fortune 500. And think how powerful that would be. Picture you're in a meeting with your TA team and you're like, okay, we just got our audit back. This is how we compare to Fortune 500s. And you could say, oh, we did better, we did worse, or we have strengths and weaknesses in these areas. That is actually your free blueprint for the year to help take you from maybe a poor score to exceptional, or maybe you're in the middle of the road to even a better score later on. So it's a really great opportunity for you to use it as a benchmarking and help yourself kind of look at what's the next year going to entail for our organization. What should we focus on, and maybe what shouldn't we?
Yeah, it's like a free SWOT analysis for you. Dating back to my college days, I hated SWOT analysis, so a free one sounds fantastic. But you can see your strengths, you can see your weaknesses, opportunities, and your threats, right? All on one in a pretty little report, and then you can compare yourself to others and look like the smartest person in the room. For your next TA meeting, which is super exciting. Joanna, I really appreciate it. I mentioned this is coming out next week, so. I want to say selfishly from a social perspective, be sure to like, share, subscribe, follow Phenom. That way you do not miss when the report comes out next week, because we do have some other stuff going on. We have the HR Tech Innovations event that's coming up. I mentioned at the top of the program, but Joanna, thank you for all of your hard work since September. Thank you for joining the program today. I loved the free tips that we were able to give out and everything in between. And I look forward to diving into the report myself. So thank you for taking the time.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. I hope you have a great weekend.
Yeah, same.
Awesome. We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye. That was Joanna Keel, product marketing manager here at Phenom, talking all about a first look at the State of Candidate Experience Report for the year 2024. She mentioned this is the 8th year we're doing it. If you are running to our website right now, it's not there yet. We're coming out with it next week. This is just to get you excited about it. And we will be sure to follow up with emails and everything in between to get you there. Thank you all once again for tuning in this week. Next week, we have the HR Tech Innovations, which I just mentioned. That is June the 6th. You can register at phenom.com. You won't miss it right there on the homepage. And last but not least, one of my favorite parts of the program. My favorite part is obviously having fantastic guests on, but it is time for song lyrics that are thought-provoking and everyone should know for the rest of their lives and apply it to their daily lives. And this one ties in directly to career sites. It's a little jingle from the artist Drake. It goes, hair done, nails did, everything did. Oh, you fancy, huh? And you want your career site to be as fancy as you possibly can. So definitely check out the State of Candidate Experience when it comes out. See how fancy you are compared to the others. And I hope everyone has a safe, happy, and healthy weekend. We'll see you next week. Thanks so much.